Alright, here we are with first game, mono green Stompy. We're going to keep this hand. We're going second. Alright, so he's probably on Faeries. Maybe Cloud Post, but usually Faeries. So things to watch out for right now are pretty much days. But that's all. And then spell stutter sprite becomes a pretty big problem against them, as we will see. So yeah, as opposed to last week's video, actually it was a little while ago, but it was the Pestilence deck, and there were a lot of subtle interactions, and it was a long, grindy games. This deck is pretty much the polar opposite, where it's a little more straightforward. Actually, it's a lot more straightforward, and basically all you're trying to do is just push through as much damage. He doesn't have days, because he instant snap, like he instant checks back there. So, something to keep in mind. This deck's a lot more straightforward, and basically all we're trying to do is just do as much damage as possible and use up all our resources as quickly as possible. This is almost definitely a spell stutter sprite here, so I think so. We attack with him, and then we're going to play the Ledge Walker because he won't be able to counter it. I mean, the other option is to just play two of these. Okay, so this is where we have to think. I think we just run out the two. Well, no, we'll do this. Okay, so we counter spells. We untap our guy. Yeah, and the only reason what happened there was he Gitaxian and probed, so he knew what we had, and then left two open. He's still leaving two open. I mean, he could have just done that for counterspell too. So maybe our read was a little bit wrong, but here he's not going to block with Delver. We're going to get through, and then we're going to play the Pit Skulks. And one will probably get countered, and one will resolve. Might have been worthwhile to try to resolve the young wolf first, but once again, he knows that we have two of them, and he'll probably let the wolf go because it doesn't do as much. A lot of times this match just comes down to swinging through and then racing a flip Delver. So the fact that he's not flipping this and missing goes a long way for us. Here comes Ninja. Alright, let's see. we hit him for... See, the problem doing figuring out here is that he has the spell stutter sprite. You're never really sure which one he's going to try to counter. At this point, maybe we'll try to gather courage. At the least, it untaps one of our guys. And then when that's over, we can resolve the Rancor, and we'll put it on him. So we let it go. Let's see. The question now is, do we want we could play Young Wolf and have him countered, in which case next turn we're swinging for... Okay, I think that works, because then we have the vines behind us. And if we draw another land, we could... I mean, assuming he doesn't have... He probably has more counter magic. But, this thing's going to be pretty tough for him right now, and we're able to do a lot of apply a lot of pressure with it. So... And we really want to make the pump spells resolve. So the fact that he countered a Young Wolf isn't too detrimental at this point. Especially when I have a guy that's pretty much unblockable. If he leaves Ninja up, that means he's probably falling behind. That would be my guess. I think the play here, if we block the Ninja with the Centennial, the next turn we could put a Rancor on him. One will probably get countered, and I would assume one resolves unless he has two counter spells, and then, well, that happens. But and also the Nettle Sentinel is not going to be getting through very often now, because it'll just get picked off by the spell stutter sprites and stuff. Whereas this guy is still pretty much unblockable. This is pretty good. So we could play, well, yeah, we'll play him out and see what happens. I'm expecting one Rancor at least to get countered, and if two do, then our clock's a little bit slower, but okay. And then we'll give this a shot and see what happens. Alright. So now we win next turn, assuming nothing miraculous happens on his part. His outs are Snaps and Echoing Truths. Occasionally these decks will show up with Serrated Arrows. No, but actually that's... Alright, so he got one of his outs. Or So actually, let's see. He needs to snap before his turn is over. Because if he lets us untap, we can respond to it with the Vines of Astwood, and then we'll win. If he does it before his turn's over, we could put Rancor on this, and then it'll become a 7/7 swinging in, and he'll probably attack with 2 Delvers. Okay. I'm not entirely sure what his last card is. I mean, he could be just holding a counterspell, but it seems like he would have used it on the Rancor. So I don't know. It could be an exclude, maybe. I'm trying to think of things that he would have but wouldn't have a chance to play yet. Okay. So if he blocks with 3 toughness, we'd have a 7 toughness guy. So assuming there's nothing, assuming his card in his hand is a dead card, we should have game here. Once I click the button. Alright. Okay. Let's put a Rancor on that. I mean, I suppose we could try to, well, okay. No, we can't Bone Splitter because then we don't have enough damage. We swing, and hopefully this will be game. Assuming he has some kind of trick. Okay, let me make sure I'm doing. This makes it a 7/7. We're doing 3, 2, 1, and then 4 trample. I apologize for this. My computer's lagging a bit, so the hourglass comes up and Magic Online just freezes. So I apologize for the spasms that my computer's gonna do. And we'll see what happens here. It resolves. It should be good. I would like to do 4 trample damage. Alright, cool. So now we go into game 2. We have a lot of sideboard stuff that we gotta bring in against them. Which is gonna be the Hornet Stings and the Hidden Spiders. Sometimes Gleeful Sabotage is worth coming in, because Serrated Arrows shows up sometimes. I don't know if it's worth. I think we side them in once we see them. If it were a Cloud Post variant, we'd definitely be bringing in the Sabotages. And even so, bringing in 1 or 2 now isn't the worst thing in the world, but the fact remains that it could still be a dead card if they don't have the arrows. Ledgewalkers are really bad in this matchup just because of Spellstutter Sprites and Cloud of Faeries, which he didn't show, but I would assume he's running. Rogue Elephants we're going to bring out. They're really bad against snaps. And Hunger of the Howlpack also isn't. We could do 2 of those. But, I mean, we'll take out 2. Just because the decks rarely actually kill things, and a lot of the fairy removal comes through bounce and then just counter spells. So them actually triggering Morbid is quite unlikely. Hornet Stings are for early delvers, which actually make them the aggressive deck, and then we fall behind. And then Hornet Stings are just against pretty much all of the creatures that they're going to want to play. So we'll keep this. I think this hand's a keep just because of the hidden spider. It's really good against them, and the Pit Skulk is also one of our better creatures. We still needed another creature for this hand, like really come together, but getting the spider early really shuts them down. Granted, they can still have a turn 1 Delver, and then if they flip the Delver, then we still kind of take a beating and have to work around that. But it's also, we could play this and then next turn follow with the Pit Skulk, which actually might not be too bad. Yeah, I think we could do that. And that should be good. Because then next turn we could play this Pit Skulk and the Hidden Spider. Oh, and he has a Force Spike. Okay, so that's good to take note of. That means he's probably not running Daze. The reason I was hesitant to play the Hidden Spider, pretty much any turn, like when this gets out on the board, it instantly has a pretty huge effect against everything he's trying to do. And if you play it later, you risk it just being countered. So, as it turns out, playing it early had a risk of being countered. But I wasn't really taking into account Force Spike, just because we didn't really see any game 1, and some variants run them, some don't. So it's one of those hit or miss cards. But now that we know he has it, it's something to keep in mind for the future. We'll play the Pit Skulk here. It's not bloodthirsty, but we could rancor him up, and we have Groundswells, and this puts him behind a lot. And if his Delver does flip, we're going to have to start trying to race him, obviously. Right now, I want to put the Rancor on the Pit Skulk. Reason being that if we let him untap, he might counter it. Seeing the Force Spike, I think it makes it unlikely he has Daze. I mean, it doesn't completely rule it out, because obviously he could still have the card. But most people will either run one or the other, and not both. So they might have like a couple copies of Force Spike or a couple of copies of Daze, but our board right now isn't the best. We kept a creature light hand, and this is kind of the punishment for doing that. And the options here, I guess, are to swing with. Yeah, I guess that's the best option. And he kills us here in 2 turns. So it might have been. So we're going to groundswell when he attacks, and well, let's see. Let me think. 1, 2. Yeah. We're just gonna have to try to block this, and then he kills us in 3 turns. So maybe in the meantime we could find something. This was a misplay as well. We should have probably groundswelled before we went to block, because now if this gets countered, we get 2 for 1. I don't, as it happens, it doesn't matter too much, because I mean we're still pretty much forced to block here anyway. Okay, so he lets that go. Okay, that's an interesting card to see here as well. It makes me think that maybe the hidden spiders aren't going to be doing as much as they would against some other of the mono blue variants. Okay, let's see. He hits for 5 next turn. We can kill the bear. We're still really far behind, but we'll just play it out and hope for the best. So when he's playing bears, and we also haven't seen any Cloud of Faeries, which is just odd because, you know, if they were running 4 copies, you'd expect to see one at least 1 point by game 2. So it makes me think that maybe his fairy count actually is a little low, and the hidden spiders aren't doing too much aside from shutting off spell stutter sprites. And if that's the case, then we might be able to get away with putting some of these back in the board. And also because it's entirely possible, seeing as we haven't seen spell stutter sprites, that maybe he's, well, I mean, it's unlikely that he would take them out, but maybe for game 3 it's not unlikely for him to side out maybe sprites, because he knows we're going to be running hidden spiders. But that gets tricky and confusing, and you're essentially guessing at a point. Here, I don't know. I don't think there's any way we pull this off. I'm trying to think. That's not what we need. So we're going to concede this one. Yeah, so the most interesting thing about that match was seeing the bear at the very end. Fogs are also kind of decent in this because you get in those racing situations, but it actually might be kind of good, at least one of them. So I think and we also didn't see any of the arrows, so that's not something I'm willing to worry about. So we'll take out the Hunger of the Howl Pack and 1 Hidden Spider for 2 Fogs. I don't think it's a mistake bringing in 4 Hidden Spiders and whatnot in game 2, because by now we've seen his deck a little bit more. I mean, it's entirely possible he just didn't draw the anything to trigger the spider, but also it's likely that, knowing that now that he has seen it, he will probably take out some of his stuff. So we should try to move this out. I mean, it's also possible that we just make the wrong call and it ends up being a huge disaster, but all right, this is a good hand. We will keep this. We're gonna open with the Young Wolf. Actually, we should open with, well, we'll do the Ranger. It's a more valuable card to have out against them than the Young Wolf. And if he does play something like a Delver, it's, well, pretty much Delver is his turn 1 creature play. And if he plays a bear, we have a Hornet's Sting for it. So that's good. The question now is, do you play Young Wolf? And I think we should just pass. Because we're going to be hitting for. All right, so there's the Cloud of Faeries. It's not the best card, not the card we want to see necessarily, but we're also definitely going to kill his Delver at the end of the turn with the Hornet Sting. Especially with the Cloud of Faeries out, it makes Hornet Stinging a Spellstutter Sprite pretty useless, because his fairy count will still be at 1. And he's going to be rearranging his spells now, and we will nullify all that. So that's nice. Alright, Vines of Vastwood. I'm inclined to just play it now so it resolves, as opposed to worrying later about him snapping and I mean, now that he's tapped out, it opens a pretty good pathway to do this. He doesn't block. We will pump our guy. It's the 12. So we kill him in four turns, which isn't bad. I don't know, it's a really cool addition to this deck, I think, to have the Pit Skulk, the creatures with power less than this card's power can't block it, is a pretty it's a really good effect, I think, for this deck. And I think Wandering Wolf can do a lot in reviving the archetype. Not that it's gone, but it had a rise in popularity, and now it kind of settled, so who knows. Rancor. Let's see. We kill him in 4 turns. If we play this, we kill him in 2 turns. The problem is that it's pretty likely that he'll have some type of removal. Let's see. Did he play a land last turn? Okay. I think we're just going to attack. And we'll save this. And then next turn, if we draw a pump spell or something else, we have enough mana to use it. And I mean, the more cards we have in our hand, the harder it is for him to make his turn too. Because okay, so just because it makes he needs to have more counter spells up and stuff. Okay. So it's good we didn't rank her, because then we would have gotten potentially blown out there. And then if he plays, depending on what he plays now, I think we could rank her up the Young Wolf, and we'll swing. He'll probably have some kind of blocker here, but Phantasmal Bear. So we'll do this, and then we'll just play the Pit Skulk and the Wandering Wolf, regardless of what he does here. Spell Stutter Spray. Alright, well actually, we'll jam this in and see what he does. I think we have to play the Pit Skulk, even though he doesn't have Bloodthirst. Just because giving him a chance to untap, like now, we just want to get as much as we can with resolve as much as we can without worrying about the counter spells. So now that he's tapped, it gives us an opportunity to do so. And also now we'll have two toughness guys out. Sorry, I apologize. My computer screen is frozen. I'll give it a minute. Okay. And we'll pass the turn to him. Oh, okay. Let's see. Okay, and that is a wonderful card for us to draw here. Especially with that resolve now, it's going to be tough for him to do much of anything. Because now that it's on the board, I mean, the most he can do is bounce it, and we're we're still at 20, and he has a long ways to go before he kills us. So we should swing in with this. We can swing in with the young wolf, trade with the bear, or we could just leave it up till it doesn't. All right, so that was a really good top deck. And then we kill him in 2 turns. He would need a snap or an echoing truth, and even then, that only gets him as far as removing what we have, and not like. I don't think he has any like permanent solutions to any of this stuff. Another land. Swing here. And we'll just hold the land. There's no. Okay. So we could attack with the young wolf. He's just going to trade with the bear, and it's not going to do much of anything. We could play the pit skulk, and it'll probably get countered. He's also still stuck on 3 lands, which means that I think, seeing as we're really close to closing this, or we could, I think the best thing here would just play another Bone Splitter. If he resolves it, then that's great, and we'll play our Pit Skulk. If he lets it go, we're just going to try to wait to have another creature. We're not on any type of clock as of right now. I think he's stuck on land, so that kind of... I don't know. It just kind of... It's just one of those things. And we're also holding the land for a groundswell, and just because we have no need to play it, and it could... it's just scarier to hold the spell because it could easily be a pump spell. We don't have to do that. We'll just put these on him. I want to think that was a misplay on his part. Yeah, that had to be. A creature would be great right here, and we don't get one. We could try to play this. I still think, especially since he has 4 lands, and usually, you know, the counter spells are like cost about 2. So if he does anything else and he has 4, and then he'll be at 3, which is usually like we'll let him counter 1 thing, and then if I mean, there's a couple exceptions, like force spikes and everything, but just basically force spikes is the only one, and then exclude costs 3, and then condescend costs whatever. But with four open, he could probably counter 2. So if he wanted to ninja or something, he'd be putting himself at risk. And I imagine it's at least a little bit scary that we have 3 cards in our hand, even if we're not doing anything with them right now. Okay. It's not the best. Okay. This would be really good if he didn't already have a spell stutter spread on the field. Since he does, that means he's pretty much just going to be able to... Because the problem is normally Hornet Sting works against Spell Stutter Sprite, where they respond with a Spell Stutter Sprite, and then you respond with a Hornet Sting to kill the Sprite, and then it checks for the number of fairies in the battlefield, and it's 0. But since he already has one out, if he were to Spell Stutter Sprite again, oh man, this is pain. If he were to Spell Stutter Sprite again, it would just check the fairy count as 1, so it would just still counter our guy. If he ninjas here, it would be pretty good, because... Okay, but he's not. We have... I should have auto-yield to that. Alright, we have 1 minute and 35 seconds left. Largely because of my computer lagging out, and also because I'm talking and wasting time. And okay, so he plays that. We're just really waiting for another creature. Alright. I shouldn't have done that, but okay. We'll play the Pit Skulk. Oh, oh, man. Okay, so he's in a Spell Stutter Sprite. Okay, well, what happened here was we probably should have waited for a 3rd creature, because as I said, usually the counter spells, the quick way to do it is just like check how many pairs of islands he has. And since he had 5, we should just assume that he would have 2 counter spells with it. I'm probably playing this a little bit too risk adverse, but yeah. So he counter spells, and then time's gonna kill us actually more than anything else. So that's a shame, because we have a pretty decent chance. Well, we have a pretty good chance of pulling this off, but. Alright, so, oh man, that's disappointing, and we're gonna time out. I apologize for my computer freezing again. Alright, so that one came down pretty close. It's interesting. I guess things we could have done differently were to just run the creatures out quicker. Uh, had we drawn more creatures, had these been creatures, we would have most definitely won. So I don't feel too bad about doing it, because then we're just being really results oriented. Because had these been creatures, and when he still had 3 lands or so, we would have pretty much definitely won that. I would say safely. And then knowing he had Cursive Chains, had this been game 2, we could have brought in the Gleeful Sabotages. I don't know if it's actually worth it for just those, but so that was the Faeries matchup. It usually comes down to a race, or rarely time, but alright, I will start another match, and I will see you there. Thanks for watching.